unions or something
Banks,
like that?
credit union. At some point, there had been ARPA funding, but that is being phased out. So now it's really looking at those private institutions that lend. We do financial analysis, though. We will work with a company to make sure that they are set up for success. We just had a meeting today with the Colfax BRT. They're small business folks because we want to make sure that as the construction comes through, that our businesses along Colfax are again set up for success. So we'll do that financial analysis, help them set up their personal finances and their professional, their business, so that they will qualify for lending.
That was one more, Mayor.
Please.
So with the BRT coming up, and I'm noticing that I'm seeing a lot of signs as I'm going up that corridor that are saying, we are open, stop in. How does this organization help with those folks being able to make sure that they are sustained while this construction's going?
Yes, we are working very closely with the construction project team so that we are engaging with our businesses. We've already held some open houses, both in English and in Spanish, to engage with those businesses, hear what their concerns are. We are hoping to have I was just meeting with our executive director. We're not really calling it a grant, but some funding. It's a menu of services. We will have some money available, but again, having that financial analysis, make sure that they can carry themselves. We also don't expect the impact in Aurora that Denver has seen, because Denver was doing that center running, so there was a lot of construction, a lot of disruption of tearing up the right-of-way, versus we're really looking at that combined travel with enhanced bus stops. So there's been a GIS exercise of looking at Tier 1 and Tier 2 businesses. Tier 1 will be right in front of that bus stop. But Tier 2, the team actually drove the corridor with that initial GIS screen to look at, okay, well, this business isn't directly in front of a new bus stop, but as you're driving, you're going to be seeing the construction signs, so they're partially blocked to make sure, again, that we are giving the resources that we need to these businesses and starting before construction comes down the road.
Further questions? Seeing none, is there any objection to moving 2E forward on the consent calendar? Seeing none, 2E will move forward.
Thank you.
Item number 3A, Library and Cultural Services Facilities Master Plans.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I'm Ginger White Brunetti, Director of Library and Cultural Services, and I'm pleased to share with you all some of the information that we received through our two master planning efforts. One is our master plan effort for, here we go. Let me see that, there we go. For library, we did a strategic plan and a facilities master plan led by our consultant Gensler. And then for cultural services, we did strictly a facilities master plan with a local consultant, Gresham Smith. In both cases, we utilized a facilities condition assessment and then talked more about capital improvements, how we can improve the facilities, not just repair and maintain existing facilities. So hopefully you all participated in our library strategic planning process. This is an effort. We haven't had a strategic plan for the library since 2020, so it was very timely to go through this to see how has the community changed. Of course, we know it has grown, and what are the needs of our community now that weren't there when we did that last strategic plan. We wanted to do this to focus on community needs and how do we focus and target our limited resources to ensure that we're providing services in the way that the community needs. As I mentioned, we also know we're a growing city, so we asked the question, where should existing facilities potentially expand, and where might they be, new ones might be located? So we entered into a very robust planning process. Several of you were there at our kickoff meeting in January. We hosted it at the Central Library branch. We had about 100 people in attendance, helping us to get the word out about the the strategic planning process, and we continued throughout towards the end of this year. There's really two phases to this program or this project. One was to look at our existing facilities and look at the condition of those facilities. We also then did the strategic planning process and asked the community, what do you want from your library system? And then we took those needs, wants, and desires and put it through a filter looking at how do those needs manifest in capital improvements. So I'll walk you through that in a quick second. So it was really a two-phased process. We had, like I mentioned, a very robust engagement strategy, and several of you helped us in this effort. We had exactly 2,392 survey respondents from our community, and we did those in English and Spanish. We had staff who were out, walking along Colfax, going to food trucks. We were at many citywide events, again, trying to ensure that we got to what I call the nooks and crannies of our community to hear how they like to utilize library services, and if they don't, what are some of the barriers. We also utilized in addition to qualitative data, we also obviously had focus groups, and we had a couple town halls. We engaged staff very deeply in this process, and then we also utilized mapping analysis too, looking at our growth areas. So in a strategic planning effort, you have the opportunity to revisit your vision and your mission and your values in your areas of focus. And I just want to call out our mission statement and our vision statement, because those I think are very, they speak to, I think, the value of the library. First, our vision statement is an interconnected Aurora that is full of opportunity. And our new mission statement for the Aurora Public Library is to nurture curiosity, capability, and confidence throughout all of life's chapters. So hopefully you are inspired by that as much as we are, and certainly our team is. When it comes to our values, this is how we interact with the public, but how we also interact with each other. Our values are access, resourcefulness, belonging, generosity, community building, and wonder. And if you've had a chance to go to the Talons Reach Library recently, or our new MLK expansion, you'll see how one of my favorite values, which is wonder, really manifests in the design of that space. MLK, it's bright, it's cheerful, it's dynamic. You really want to be there. The furniture looks great. Some of the even the sound dampening looks really cool. And same with Talons Reach. We've got a beautiful new children's library area. I hope you'll have a chance to check it out when we have the Grinch there at the beginning of December. But that's just one way in which, when you think about how a strategic planning process also manifests or should hopefully translate into the design of our facilities. And then when it came to the areas of focus, this is where we heard from our community. This is what they want from their library system. They want resource navigation, comprehensive skills and literacy development, community building, digital access, and passion and culture cultivation. And so when you think about what libraries do, resource and access navigation and literacy are sort of, our most basic services that we offer, but we go up the range and we think about how are we helping our community cultivate their passion? What are low barriers of entry to learn about watercolor or to hear music at Mission Viejo? So those are the things that we do to provide, I think, a continuum of services that our community is asking for. So how does that enter into the facilities master plan? How does this sort of translate? Well, we did ask questions of the community about what is not working in our library system. And I just want to focus, since the thrust of today's presentation is around facilities and infrastructure. And I'll just pause by saying, if you ever want to deep dive into the 178-page document with appendices for our master plan, I'm happy to do that. And I'm with Joe McNeil, who's our Deputy Director of Library Services, and we'd be happy to tag team that. When it comes to facilities and infrastructure itself, systems findings show outdated technology. Our workspaces lack outlets and chargers, as you can imagine. I like to call libraries as the OG of WeWork space. I know Councilman Gardner has utilized Central Library in between meetings and brought his laptop, but it's only so good as the charger that's next to, or the electric outlet that's right there. And if you've been to Mission Viejo Library, we have almost none of those. So it's hard to go in and plug in your laptop and actually make use of the facility. Furniture, equipment, and supplies are outdated. Our team spaces are inadequate. We have space constraints, and there's just limited signage and visual cues to get you around some of our facilities. So when we think about, we asked also the question, well, how would you want our facilities to look and feel when you come into our spaces? Again, comfortable furniture, indoor greenery, access to natural light. These are the top 5 things that the community responded to. And when it comes to spaces themselves, looking at things like a cafe or community kitchen, but also maker spaces. Several of you will hopefully have a chance to see that at our new maker space at the MLK branch, but also things like repair workshops. Libraries are not just about books anymore, and so our community is asking us for things that have a little bit more bells and whistles, which is really exciting. So, looking at our existing facilities and how are we doing when it comes to just maintaining what we have, with the help of Gensler, we did, again, a facility condition assessment. And then the good news is across our 5 branches, we have about, they're generally in good condition. There are things that need to be fixed, but certainly over the next 6 to 10 years, we're looking about $6.7 million needed in investment to maintain our facilities. That's everything from roofing to parking lots to HVAC, electric, and plumbing. And you can see how those numbers are reflected across the 5 branches that the city owns and operates. But we also asked them to say, well, we don't want to just, fix things. We want to think about how can we make public improvements to these spaces. I will say the numbers that you see here under capital improvements, the $6.1 million, that's ways to optimize existing space in the libraries. That is things like thinking about how to move maybe put in a different stairwell within Hoffman as an example, or reconfigure Central Library and make all adult services on one level and our children's and teen space on the second level. Just really thinking about how we optimize those spaces. What these numbers don't reflect are things like restroom renovations, which if you've been in any of our restrooms at our libraries, that would be, I think, a necessary improvement as well. But looking at deferred maintenance and capital improvement, we're just shy of $13 million in cost estimates. And again, this is 2025 dollars. But again, like I mentioned, we also asked them to look at what would an expansion of our system look like with Aurora that's continuing to grow. And of course, we recently closed Chambers and Iliff at the end of October. So through the course of that analysis, they have proposed and suggested that that our library system, to keep up with the growth, should think about investing in three locations, and C1 and C2 sort of depends on the timing of when we might make that investment as a city into a library branch. These are all in Ward 2, which, as you know, is where we're seeing the most of our growth. But the proposed, or I should say, the recommendation is that we look at a new library first in the northeast part of our city. The total capital cost for that, they've estimated at $18 million. That excludes the cost of the land. This would be a 30,000 square foot library. Because of Denver's Green Valley Ranch Library, they're suggesting that it be east of East 470 because of the fact that there is a service area that people do go to Green Valley Ranch, the Denver branch, for some of those library services currently. So moving on to the Cultural Services Facilities Master Plan, so not our library system. We asked, we had a different firm do this study for us, and we looked at the Aurora Fox Art Center, the Bicentennial Art Center, the Aurora History Museum, and Meadowood. And as you know, we are moving Aurora Dance Arts. They're expanding some of their programming into Meadowood, and we'll be making some improvements there with your endorsement this year. When we looked at deferred maintenance, so again, going back to what do we need to fix or replace, over the next 3 to 5 years, they're projecting a need of total of $16 million in investment. That is everything from HVACs to roofing, site conditions across many of our facilities, library and cultural services are pretty poor, drainage, sidewalks, parking lots, lighting, and that sort of thing. And so there's significant investment across all of our facilities, especially when you start looking at the next 3 to 5 years out. But of course, again, we don't just want to improve what's, or fix what's needs fixing. We want to improve our facilities. And so we asked Gresham Smith, what are some things that we can do to make our facilities better from a patron standpoint, better from a staff standpoint, and just optimize some of the spaces that we currently operate. So you can see here under Aurora Fox Art Center as an example, it's just a little shy of $7 million worth of proposed improvements. You will see in a subsequent slide, those things that are highlighted in blue are things that we think are most important and priority improvements that we would want to make across our facilities. If we did everything we always ever wanted, it would be about $32 million in capital improvements that we would do across these 4 facilities. I will mention that the People's Building was not included in this analysis at this time, and I believe Public Works did do a facilities condition assessment of that building in particular. So if you just look at what we would want to do in those blue highlighted areas, again, we're looking at, let me move my cursor so I can see.
Patricia, could you pause
Yeah.
for a question from
Oh, sure.
Councilmember Bergen?
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but
Yeah.
if you can go back
Of course.
to that other slide.
Yeah. Oh, hang on. There we go.
On the Fox Theater,
Yes.
why is parking not addressed?
I'm sorry, parking?
Parking and lighting.
So in the facility condition assessment, things like lighting is addressed there, but like in resurfacing the parking lot, but not expanded parking.
Not expanded?
Correct.
Okay.
I think that's probably something that's a good discussion for the Downtown Development Authority as we get into that, just safe, well-lit parking. I think you remember those were things we've heard kind of along the entire corridor, so I think those are good discussions for as the DDA.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. I will say lighting was called out in the deferred maintenance for both the Fox and Meadowood Recreation Center as needed improvements. So if you looked at priority capital improvement projects at the Fox, we're looking at $4.7 million at the Bicentennial, $2 million, and at Meadowood, $4.7 million for a total of $11.5 million in priority capital improvement projects, plus the deferred maintenance, which again is $10.5 million. So almost $22 million, or exactly $22 million in cultural, in improvements to our cultural services areas. Now, one of the things that the consultant did recommend and why you don't see improvements shown here for Aurora History Museum If you saw on the deferred maintenance slide, we have almost, what was it? Let me go back. For Aurora History Museum, almost $5 million needed in deferred maintenance alone. That is a facility that may not be the best facility for Aurora History Museum for a variety of reasons. And so the recommendation is to really take a harder look at the feasibility of the Aurora History Museum and whether or not there is a better location for that museum or a different way to operate that museum than currently as it sits on the AMC campus. So that's why you don't see figures there for that facility. So all told, if you took together the library improvements and deferred maintenance, as well as the cultural services improvements and deferred maintenance, we're looking at $34.8 or $35 million worth of improvements within the next 5 to 10 years. So happy to take any additional questions you might have.
So as a reminder for everybody, just to put this in context, this is, we've been doing this with a number of our different things. We did it with public safety master plan. We'll be bringing forward the multimodal master plan with those needs. And all that's going to fold into our discussions around Build Up Aurora and Infrastructure Task Force. So that's the purpose behind all this. Ginger and her team are not sitting on a magic pot of money at the end of the rainbow. But that's, again, why we're having these discussions. And we want these master plans to fold into those discussions we're having on Build Up Aurora.
Councilmember Coombs.
So as we're having conversations about facility upgrades, and we're talking about funding sources there, I wonder if we also are going to look at staffing and right-sizing staffing and making sure that we have enough people to make sure those facilities and programs operate well. Historically, our libraries and cultural services have run extremely lean, and that's even more so compared to an already lean city overall. And so is that something we would include in funding requests of the taxpayers, or how would we approach staffing as we're also looking at capital?
Yeah, I think this is just looking at the capital costs of, particularly when it comes to an expansion of standing up a new facility. We have not looked at what would the operating model need to be or the staffing model need to be for that expansion. That would be certainly a conversation we would want to have if it were to go onto the ballot and how we would address that. Yeah.
Councilmember Moreno.
Councilmember Bergen had her hand up first.
Councilmember Bergen.
Well, because I did my green light. Just FYI.
It lists, Mayor.
It lists on here. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just
Oh, there we go.
question on, earlier you mentioned land
Yes.
for a new library in Ward 2. Is that something that, I know the developers dedicate land for schools and for fire stations and police stations. Do they, or maybe not police, but do they dedicate land for libraries?
No, not as part of their.
No.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then my second question is on kind of to Councilmember Coombs' point on operations. I would love to see extended hours, and I know that means more staff, so just make that point.
Councilmember Moreno.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm just wondering, in the analysis, there was the 10-minute radius. How, if at all, do you guys incorporate density as part of the access point? For example, Ward 1, smaller, might be a shorter drive, but there's more people concentrated in a smaller amount of area. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, and I know I'd have to double check the methodology of what's called the urgency index. It does account for drive shed. I believe it also accounts for density. We did look at whether or not we need to expand any of existing branches, and that wasn't the case. Over the next 10 years. They did talk about doing that within Central Library, but you could maybe achieve that if you didn't have the mezzanine that overlook, and you expanded that floor so you could get more square footage within the current existing building envelope. But MLK, for instance, did not need an expansion, nor did they see that there needed to be another library in Ward 1. But I'll double check that methodology for you, for sure. Yeah.
It was a question, you mentioned in Ward 2, the possibility of a new library at 30,000 square feet, I think. And that seems large, given the utilization levels that we have. I mean, post-internet, the utilization has dropped quite a bit.
Thanks. That's a good point.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Money is the issue, funding is the issue, but what time frame did you say we're looking at for Northeast Aurora, getting the first library? And then secondly, how many would be ideal? Did you say as many as 5?
So in the analysis, they looked at essentially 3. So A, B, and then C1 or C2, depending on, how development goes and the timing of that build out. So, and when the city might want to time itself to that build out. So as many as 3 in Ward 2. This first part of your question, though.
The time frame.
The time frame. Yeah, I think, they're suggesting that with the growth that's currently happening in Ward 2, that be the first, that's A, just east of E470 would be the one that should go first. Yeah.
But we don't know that.
How many years?
How many years?
No, I mean, I think that's partly,
Yeah, money.
I mean, they would say soon, but they didn't say, that's for, I think, the collective to
questions?
decide.
Thank you.
Of course.
Further questions?
And I did just put up here, these are the square footages of our current libraries. So with the exception of Mission Viejo, which is quite small, we are hovering around that 30,000 square foot number.
Central's huge.
Central is much larger. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm done now.
The next issue involves the Fitzsimmons Innovation Community, and the Executive Director, Kelly Ruff, had mentioned that it would be well, first of all, there's no requirement to have all elected officials serve on that, but representatives from the city, and so there's been a request to have the city manager serve as a board member there, given the complexity of the metro districts and the infrastructure issues that are on the Fitzsimmons Innovation Community part of the Anschutz Medical Campus. And so Councilmember Gardner has agreed to step down in favor of the city manager. And is there any objection to that? Seeing none, then that's the direction that we'll take. Councilmember Coombs.
Can we just fix the backup, or somewhere in the minutes kind of better reflect that? Because the backup doesn't say anything, basically.
Yeah, we
It's
noticed
like a blank page.
You're right. Councilmember Bergen called me this morning, as she always does when she reads all of her stuff. And we noticed at the commentary page, because we had to throw it on very quickly because of what happened, we had left some of the default language in there. And so it was appropriate how we did it here in the minutes and being recorded, that this is how the direction would be to have Jason appointed to that board. But moving forward, we'll make sure that it's fixed.
Seeing no further business before the Aurora City Council, I think we will adjourn and for the study session. And I believe we have a reception right now for the outgoing members
That's it, yes.
out in the lobby.